Mature Yoga. Finding a teacher in the modern world. Andrei Verba. Once, a Naga came to Buddha and gave him a very valuable shell. As a rule, Buddha didn't keep the presents, but passed them to others. He placed the shell next to him, thinking of handing it over to someone so that the shell will be of benefit. All his life, Buddha had nothing but several robes, an alms bowl, and a walking stick. That's it. He was a very modest person as far as possible. One boy came to Buddha and gave him a prayer beads made of crystal, rock crystal. So the boy approached Buddha to donate crystal prayer beads, and Buddha picked up the shell. Several scenarios of this story ending exist. One of them is quite fantastic, almost a fairy tale. And this one I'm gonna share with you now. Why is it a fairy tale kind? Because what Tsonkapha did was extraordinary. Only he managed to overcome what no one else succeeded to. So, we consider the most extraordinary version that exists. Do you see my logic? Had it been easy, someone else could do it, but it didn't happen. So, according to this fantastic case scenario, Buddha showed the shell to the boy and said, "Right now, you cannot use this shell, but I am giving it to Mount Galyayana. He will hide it in such a place where you can easily find it in one of your future lives. This shell will help you benefit a great deal of people in this world." So, this happened. In 1200 years, another boy was born in the country, and he was into self-development from the age of 7. One of the Tibetan culture features is preferable early self-development. So Tsonkapha was born in a family with such traditions. The first initiation he got at the age of 3 or 7, I do not remember exactly. He was of this big, and he revealed a great depth of knowledge. He easily memorized the scriptures. Others could not realize. He was of great knowledge. He could easily remember sophisticated scriptures. Of course, he did apply some efforts to assimilate those texts. Still, it came so natural to him that he could recite very unique parts that was beyond imagination of sages of that time. Clearly, the boy had an unbelievable potential. He was a genius. At age of 25, he became a monk, took a vow of celibacy, put on a monk robe, and started a monastic education. He is believed to have had more than 100 teachers. Despite his vast knowledge, he was open to the teachings of any master he could meet. Sure, Tsonkapha's authority increased. He lived very decently. So, he was 52 or 54, as he was predicted to establish a monastery for a fast development of the teaching. His disciples proposed him to build up a monastery. The guide told you that Tsonkapha himself had erected the monastery. It is not true. He didn't do it. That was his disciples' initiative. They told him, "Lama, your knowledge is deep. How come you still don't have a monastery? We will build it up for you. It's a proper time." So he agreed. They were in a search of a good site for the monastery. They saw such a place in meditation. That is the hill where we are now. On another flank of the hill, the shell was digged out. The one Buddha didn't hand over to Tsonkapha in the past. So what happened after the boy and Buddha met was following. Buddha handed over the shell to Mount Galyayana and asked him to fly to Tibet and hide it on the hill where upcoming monastery of Tsonkapha would be founded. Tsonkapha did a lot for Tibet. He brought the teachings of Buddha to Tibet. That's a very important point. You got me? his disciples came to be known as the first Dalai Lama, though there is another version of the Dalai Lama title introduction, according to which one Mongolian Han just decided to grant the title Dalai Lama instead of traditional Lama. But some believe that one of the Tsonkapha's disciples had extraordinary merits. So after his death, Tsonkapha, appreciating his great merits, granted him the title Dalai Lama, though after his death only. Then the surge of the incarnation of the Dalai Lama is organized every time a previous one passes on. The Dalai Lama lineage exists for the past 600 years only. That is what the Ganden monastery is. By the way, Ganden means Tushita in Sanskrit. Tushita is a planet designed for nothing but self-development. That's the residence for souls not interested in making money or satisfying some desires. Those who dwell in Tushita want to get some realizations only. Everything is perfect over there. Nothing gets broken. Self-development is the only activity at that planet. So the Ganden is named after that planet. Considering the heaven realms, planets like Tushita make less than 0.0001%. It's a pure resort for practitioners and Bodhisattvas. You know, by the way, what Bodhisattvas are into? They bear the burden no one else, being of sound mind and memory, is eager to. They care even for social misfits and rejects. Here is an example of Bodhisattva doing. In Nepal, we visited Namo Buddha, a site where Buddha, in a previous life as a prince, gave his body to a starving tigress and her cubs. According to a legend, Shariputra and Mount Galyayana were the cubs who had been destined to be eaten up by their mom, a tigress. But they were saved up by the prince. The prince was the Buddha himself, and the cubs were his disciples, Shariputra and Mount Galyayana. Somebody else probably was there, I'm not sure, but these two, mentioned above, were definitely there. How come they happened to be born as tigers? Due to lack of potential, karma they created hadn't been changed before they passed away. So, they found themselves in the animal world. With this notion, Buddha reincarnated there to pull them out. You see the logic? Things are quite complicated when it comes to the Bodhisattva. Not to mention unprepared disciples taking the path of Bodhisattva and helping those who have created a great deal of bad karma. That's a classic example of Buddha's sacrifice for the sake of his disciples. That's what Bodhisattvas do in most of the cases. In some Guruji's disciples reincarnate as some fishes. He comes alone to be on the same page with them. If some Guruji's disciples reincarnate as some fishes, he comes alone to be on the same page with them. Thus, Tushita is a right place for those having created some karma and in need of recovery. Do they recover with the help of practice to be reincarnated later again? Right, they practice to change the energy flow, as some blockages in energetic channels prohibit the ascent of the consciousness. Low level of consciousness results in low level reincarnation. Here is another example. Marpa could transfer his consciousness into another body, particularly into a body of recently died or killed by hunter's animal. So, once upon a time, Marpa shifted his consciousness into a dead deer, and he completely forgot about his real being. So his disciples had to prostrate endlessly to the animal to remind Marpa of self-development, and him being a Marpa not a deer. Having got the body of the deer, Marpa adopted its mindset, its interests, such as yummy green grass, etc. Energy flows made its business. So once Bodhisattva finds himself in Tushita, he can change the problems of his energy flow. Is the term karma clear to you? Visit our website and go to the Andrei Verba's lectures illustrations. One of the illustrations has a scheme of chakra system of a human being. The current interests of the being are in correspondence with his addictions of his previous life. In other words, previous addictions determine current concerns. There is one classical method that helps deal with weaknesses and leave them behind instead of dragging them along to a next life. In the afternoon of life, one's social role is up. The human goes to the teacher asking for a system of self-developing. What for? For a better reincarnation. For that, the addictions ought to be kicked out from the channels. Then, next reincarnation might be adequate. Hence, if we practice properly, channels get cleaned up and the afflictions vanish away. Once they are gone, associated karmas worked out. Is it correct? Have you noticed that your reality perception changes after yoga practice? Even if you do Hatha Yoga only, your state before a yoga class and after do differ. Though it's nothing but 1.5 or 2 hours of exercises. Have you experienced such an effect? Yes, I have. So now just imagine you practicing properly day and night under the supervision of your Guruji to ensure your adequate development. Perception of reality does get affected in that case. First of all, self-development methods are meant to change energetically the inner problems that could eat you up. You have some energy, some resources on hand, but mostly you waste it all on cravings, ambitions, or fulfilling some desires that seem to be so important at this time. Thus, you waste your life. Or, to put the same thing from a different angle and consider the person being born with a great deal of experience, having been accumulated in previous life. That can be applied to you too. I can assure you, most of you and screen viewers of this lecture are listening at this lecture only because you have already got sick and tired in previous lives. And this time you tend to look for a way of self-development to some extent. Are you with me? So the one who's not fed up with ambitions and cravings is attracted by them. Only those who have experienced them all tend to make some effort. To others, they seem to be members of a sect, as they opt such ridiculous things as getting on a yoga mat instead of visiting a restaurant or going shopping to buy something highly advertised. But no, they prefer to do yoga instead of falling for commercials. There is something wrong about them. Don't you think so? I'll tell you what's wrong. The potential of the previous lives is so high that they don't buy the lie. They are able to find the way to their happiness. A question: did Tsonkapha reincarnate again? It is unknown. Still, Tsonkapha was of a great compassion. The likes of him never rest for long. If Lama, like him, does a lot of goodness, he would reincarnate again and again. On another hand, the more Lama benefits others, the longer he takes to recover. Is it clear? Not really? The more intense the concentration on a person, the heavier his burden he has to carry. Tsonkapha died at the age of 60 or so. He did a lot for his life. Living in Tibet is not a piece of cake. There are no heaters, and in theory he could eat meat, taking into consideration the severe climate of Tibet. If you keep on eating meat, you'll face liver problems, as present-day meat is simply dangerous. So these kind of people do reincarnate. Any other questions? Why did we reincarnate here? Do you want an easier world to live in? It's possible. The world you reincarnate is determined by your karmic connections. There are two types of practitioners, as per scriptures. Shravakas or Pratika Buddhas is the first type. Knowing the issue of the world, they dream of running off this planet as far as possible. They happen to come here, so they do breathing exercises, embrace austerity and so on. Then, yahoo! And leave the planet happy and sound. But there is an issue, karmic connections. We are all, more or less, karmically connected. So the one who has reached his happiness somewhere there had certain parents who had spent some amount of time and efforts to bring him up. So he's all set. But what about them? What are they into? Nothing changed for them. Which means they will end up as yaks, as they eat yaks for breakfast, lunch and dinner. That's why lamas reincarnate as a human to help those who had helped them. That's returning the debts, roughly speaking. When the planet collapses, two options of development will be available. First one leads to reincarnation in heaven, following Maitreya. The other option leads to retirement to a strict reformation. So one has to apply some effort to be in the first group if you want to come here again. Taking into consideration your high social activity, such as business, etc., you won't be let out from here that easily. You'll have to come back on earth again and again due to many karmic knots, you see? The way you live results in your output. Let's say you have around 1 million lives. Let's say you have around 1 million lives on earth until Buddha Maitreya comes. It's up to you how you live them through. If efforts are applied, there is a chance to be with the group of developing souls. Otherwise, you'll be wiped out to the hells where strict reformation happens. If a person doesn't want to improve his inner world energy-wise, he'll be put by force under conditions that stimulate the energy boost where you wouldn't like it to do. To put it simple, you are helped change the consciousness on the level of energy. Still, if someone does incredibly disgusting things, then special hells execute their cancellation to zero. Let me explain. For instance, you make a mistake, and your dad tells you, "Son, you do bad things." Unless you get it in the neck, you cannot realize you're bad. Words are useless. Indeed, this approach has a longer-lasting effect. You keep in mind your dad's preaching. You see the logic? Similarly, karma teaches us. Putting it simple, when someone goes to hell for some time, he gets it in his neck. Still, some souls don't feel like quitting harmful behavior. Then they get under formatting to zero by being replaced in special hells full of horrors that leads to personality disappearance. Then the evolution of these souls starts from the scratch. According to the Vedic scriptures, they start up as stones, then plants, then animals, and one day they might be humans again. That's the way to educate these souls, as they want to live at the expense of others, believing in their uniqueness and in others' slavery. See the logic? You know that there are some people who live at the cost of others, don't you? The following has to be told to them. The following has to be told to them. Once you like to ride a horse, have a courage to pay it back. Let it be on your place and ride you. The soul of the horse is no way worse than yours. Why would you think it is? You read it in books? Then find out who wrote those books and how the author reincarnated them. Reach Samadhi state to find it out, and you'll be shocked. Any other questions? These souls hurting others with a burden of bad deeds come on earth for a reason? Let me share with you one concept the rulers of this planet stick to. Why do we have the wars and other troubles on the planet? Unfortunately, they do not believe in the law of karma, and that is why they do what they do. But what do they reincarnate on earth now? Why? That's for your evolution. In your previous lives, you had an opportunity to develop yourself in good conditions. Still, you preferred to enjoy life instead of making efforts. Being a kid, you could be a good boy, washing up dishes, washing your hands, or doing something else beneficial for you. Instead, you opted to play games. It's a common choice for kids. You were childish in your previous lives, and you didn't want to work on your qualities, work on yourselves. You were lazy. So now, you are forced, by hard times, to work on yourselves in such conditions. The wars, the horrors of nowadays, exist to show you that pleasures lead to problems. That's the role of the souls troubling others. Still, I feel sorry for them, as they decide to cure with weapons, but it's possible to cure with words only. Why these souls that make others suffer believe themselves to be superior to others? Who did teach such a concept? Who did share such an opinion? Actually, they choose to believe so. I've never met a wealthy person being spiritual. It's almost impossible. Assets, possession, be it plants, newspapers or ships, change the mindset dramatically. The more material a man is, the more specifically his mindset gets formed. So people who create problems for others just don't understand that they will have to get through the same. How do I know it? I've read some specific scriptures, though those people follow. Still, those scriptures, aged 5,000 years, are very young in comparison with Vedic culture. These are texts that are more ancient. So according to them, some very highly might powers control the law of karma. Shiva is responsible for punishing the so-called privileged souls that want to take advantage over others without facing the effect. But he's a serious guy that never laughs due to lack of sense of humor. He's very straight, as well as his assistants, who make sure that everyone gets his due. All my life, I've been looking for some answers on my questions in scriptures. Who is Shiva? And the more I study, the clearer I see that punishment comes from his compassion. Some scriptures say that special institutes and departments of powerful demons exist to capture those who don't believe in the law of karma. Denying the law of karma is one of the biggest mistakes of a human. Yes, I have a question. You said that wealthy people don't have a chance to develop. I cannot understand why it's like that. Men of property create jobs. How bad is it? Or the problem is in improper methods of influence they use? What I mentioned is that it's hard for wealthy people to grow spiritually. Higher a person climbs up a mountain, the more difficult it is to climb up another mountain. If you don't believe me, I might assume that I am not authority for you. But read the Gospel. You might have heard of Jesus Christ, haven't you? So he said, "It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God." I watch the world around me, and I can conclude that wealthy people have harsh times. They do keep some people going by, creating jobs. However, there are two reasons why they can benefit from a wealthy man. In one of your previous lives, you were at his place, but you had lost everything, and now you have to climb up slavishly from the beginning. In this case, he provides you with a job. The point is that he helps himself. He's another incarnation only. You see the point? There is another possible variant. That's the last material life of a person. When he's fed up with material things, he rejects material possessions in his new life and dives into self-development. And you might be surprised, but all these poor monks who rejected everything since childhood were wealthy beings in previous life. Yet they realized that any material good is a cause of problems. You might not believe me, but this is the truth. So what I'm trying to explain is a second possible scenario. When a rich life is a form of repaying debts to those who follow his path. Any manager strives to be a director. Any director strives to be a chairperson, right? It's a social ladder they climb to evolve life by life. So, if a rich man helps you improve your material life, he does what has already been done by someone else. And there is no spiritual growth in it. There is nothing to do with spirituality. No matter how much food you provide to the crowd, it doesn't help raise consciousness. I have one more question. We're talking of businessmen and money-making, but the key point is attachment, isn't it? If there is no attachment to material welfare, and one can let it go anytime, is it still a karmic relation with money? Yes, it is. Any material gain is given for some particular reason. If it comes to you, you work for your future or repay your past debts. That's the debit or the credit of your life. Either a karmic burden or a future gain. Most likely, you take up a post and you have someone superior to you. The superior is believed to do nothing and make a fortune, right? And you dream to be in his shoes, don't you? And Jivatma generates an intention to get something. Believe me or not, but all the dreams come true. But not in this life. Next time you'll come, you'll get desired experience to learn lessons. Whatever you long for will be given. As a rule, one doesn't see the useless of longing unless he's filled up with that experience to the point of sickness. Andrei, I have a question. I don't strive for more. I'm satisfied with what I have now. Moreover, I have some time for self-development. What is it? Hard to say. What I know is that middle class is perfect for evolution. People in need or burdened by big money hardly can develop. It's a good karma to be a medium. It means you have a chance to fulfill your mission both on physical and spiritual levels. I recommend those who have business to contribute some part of the profit to good causes. Here's an advice with ancient roots. If you cannot share your knowledge, find the one who can and sponsor him. Your support of such a person benefits you. That's how you can get blessings. See the logic? That's how the Institute of Donation was set up. Any other questions? I have one about wishes. What if I have changed my mind and I don't wish for something I craved for some time back? Would it still come true? Probably yes, and that's a problem. Due to your foolishness, you wanted something, so you are predestined to get it. It is like you eat and cry and feel sick, but you cannot help it. Actually, it doesn't really matter. If you practice, energetically you can change it. I got to know this concept many years back, and just couldn't believe it. Indeed, appearing wishes can exhaust. Appearing wishes that can exhaust can be controlled with the help of your practice. You all understand what I mean, right? The energy centers, called chakras, record your intentions. You'll have to get through. People poor in energy cannot realize their wishes, but as soon as they accumulate some energy, predetermined by your karma things get activated. Is it clear? These are your lessons. Still, on energetic level, you can change predetermined course of events. Did you get it? Let's consider how a desire comes up. For that, imagine a light stream in glass tube. If the tube is empty, the light freely gets through it. Now, let's place a colorful pill in a tube. The light stream gets in, but it gets out, colored by the color of the pill. That's how passions appear. Whenever there is a desire in your energy channels, you crave for a certain object and you simply follow it. That's the principle of the energy work. But when you practice yoga and experience some discomfort, possible disturbing desires may not visit you in future. So, if now you intend to avoid the realization of previous dreams and desires, practice Hatha Yoga. A question: will there be a moment for all souls to liberate? Yes, it will. Can I ask one more question? Does it mean that Bodhisattvas will never be liberated from reincarnation? This is not possible. Manifested reality will have to disappear in one form or another. According to the 16th chapter of the Lotus Sutra, Buddha Shakyamuni had been on the path of Bodhisattva for unbelievable amount of kalpas to help other living beings. As Buddha himself mentioned in the 16th chapter, I will commit myself to the Bodhisattva path for much more time than I have already done. Why so? A soul can forget about past experience and want to gain the same experience again. However, according to one concept, sooner or later souls can gain all possible experience. For example, grasshopper is interested in green grass only. So if he comes across a supercar one guy dreams of, the grasshopper wouldn't even comprehend why he's so much after the car, if there is plenty of green grass around. But what can we do to make the grasshopper stop wishing, to let him experience all possible passions? He must get through all possible passions to experience how they influence his inner world. When he experiences firsthand, he would understand that something is wrong with it, as the same repeats life by life. What a vicious circle! How to stop it? Had he have a good karma, he would come across the term samsara in some book, and then he would recall the term he knew some 20,000 years back. And he would find the meaning of samsara, a circle of life. So, it turns out that the more you want, the more you get. At the same time, the more you suffer. Akin to a hamster in a spinning wheel, day and night, sitting pretty, then screwed up, again sitting pretty, and so on, until you are fed up. Then you stop the rat race and draw your attention to self-development. But you start your spiritual path as a foolish monk who backpedals. Still, slowly you evolve. Then you become a teacher of some spiritual subject. I don't mean a modern coach who preaches how to earn money or and will shift the roles with his students in future life, to my regret. So, starting as a grasshopper and going all the way up through material experience to a teacher, and finally becoming a master, having tested all possible systems of self-development. Then you get all set of possible experiences. The superior master is called Tathagata, one who has thus come. Buddha Shakyamuni was the last Tathagata. Up-and-coming Tathagata on this planet is Buddha Maitreya. So, Tathagata can say no to any temptation. Moreover, if you are listening to this talk, you are also following this path. You don't know it yet, but you will evolve to the Tathagata level. In second chapter onwards of the Lotus Sutra, Buddha predicts his disciples how many kalpas they all will work hard on the path to reach the final stage of accumulating all possible experiences. A question. So, we all gathered here to become spiritual people on high level. And according to what you say, I understand that we should communicate with wise people like you, gaining wisdom and knowledge to become truly spiritual. So how can we recognize a good teacher who can answer our questions? Thank you for a compliment, but I'm unlikely to be such kind of a person. I have imperfections. To find good teachers, I recommend to use a common sense. First of all, find a definition of a good teacher in scriptures. Then, see true followers of such a teacher, those who don't talk to the wind, but get objective results by practicing the teaching. Trust first-hand experience only, not empty words. And if you feel that he's onto something, then try his teaching yourself. That's a common sense. Nevertheless, to my big regret, it's not that easy as it seems to be. You'll face difficulties finding a true teacher and his true disciples. You'll face difficulties finding a true teacher and his true disciples. Nowadays, any teacher is bad-mouthed. I have recently watched a movie, casting shadow on Sai Baba name. When I visited Nepal for the first time, I was astonished by the amount of Sai Baba image stickers. He was on every single car, to protect while driving and reach the destination safe and sound. The Sai Baba worship was incredible in Nepal. The stickers could be bought in every quarter. That scale of a worship gradually passed, but it's no longer big. Just the same, a multi-move game goes against almost any teacher as I see it. As soon as a teacher is raised up above social medium, he can be tempted. In case he is hard to fault, then an act of falsification happens. I doubt you can find a worthy teacher. Here's another example. One of my teachers is from India. Being a real practitioner and avoiding empty talks, he's highly regarded by me. He is at his 80s now. 1.5 years back, he was again criticized to the maximum. In fact, those criticizers haven't achieved even 1/10th part of development of a criticized by them person. They can do nothing but criticize. They should try to do something relevant, to have weight in their words. Criticizing teachers is not appropriate. Teachers do what have to be done. Teachers do what has to be done, even if it's wrong. If it's not done by them, others would do it. You might even not believe me, but the more I observe different teachers, the more I ascertain that any teacher bears as much as he has to. First, he gains popularity, he accumulates karma, then stagnation. He looks for extra sources and grasps at a straw to survive. You are all smart. What's the best activity on the planet? Teaching, isn't it? So, I would recommend you to attempt to record your teachings and upload them on internet, so you'll understand why Sai Baba and Pilot Baba feel so bad. Coming back to your question, why it's not possible to find a good teacher? Any teacher has imperfections. So, I came to the conclusion that I'd better learn whatever the competency of a teacher is, even if he's not perfect. Don't look for a 100% perfect teacher. So, you can learn from different teachers, and by the end, you might form up your own picture perfect. Try to live perfectly. Soon you'll figure out how hard it is in our world. Did I answer your question? Another question. Is it true that when the disciple is ready, the master appears? Yes, this is right. Will a master pop up if one puts some effort? Do you expect a teacher to appear and say, "Masha, here I am, your teacher. Don't you recognize me?" No, I don't expect that, but I believe that I can feel that this exact person is my teacher. Don't trust your feelings. I have witnessed many times how feelings mislead people. Here is an example of a friend of mine with a bright personality who walks on the way of a self-development parallel to me. We were born with a few days gap, and she's changed about 5 or 6 teachers. Every 5 years, I receive her mail, or better say a mail out to all her friends. She describes her latest fantastic teacher and invites to meet him up. So she looks for followers for a new Guruji, spreading the word among her friends. The matter is that it's a Guruji number 6, as I remember, and she spoke in glowing terms of all 6 of them. You see my point? So every time she was uplifted, meeting up a new teacher, and she considered him to be the right one. After some time, she became disillusioned with him and started looking for someone else to follow up for a certain amount of time with a heart-oriented approach. And the situation repeated many times. I have already mentioned about a common sense, but don't listen to your heart. No good will come out of it. But I didn't mean a teacher, but his teachings, feeling his teachings as the right ones. If teachings speak to you, probably it makes sense at a certain stage. I mean, if your mind agrees on the teaching and it is in line with your heart. But let's consider the topic maturely. One woman asked me to recommend her a Guruji in India. I took it ironically, imagining a vivid picture of her development in India. We receive many requests of that kind. So it's a hot topic. People ask about ashrams, gurujis, etc. So what I answered to that woman is following. Don't expect anything good out of it. You know why? Any teacher you meet on your way has to take out whatever covered underneath your skin. My dear friends, indeed you are all good beings, but you have no idea what you consist of in the reality. So the role of a teacher is to dig out the trash you keep inside, and you can never accept that. But you may turn into a nasty man. Even your relatives wouldn't tolerate you. Because on the first stage of development, any man becomes a fanatic over some ideas. He imposes his beliefs on his parents, taking them stupid. That's the time when many families divorce. Relatives cannot stand such a fanatic, you see? I don't know any exceptions. I haven't met a single person who passed this stage bloodlessly. So a teacher has to be an authority you follow even at the edge of madness or any other inadequate state. You have to pay attention to his saying when no other authority exists for you. Unfortunately, as you live in modern society, and you used to watch commercials, satisfied your passions, you still carry all them inside. So, sooner or later, they will have to come out. Thus, no matter what a beautiful ashram with a great teacher you find, you'll act foolish to the maximum. That's the reason behind westernized ashrams in India. These ashrams teach how to do nadishodhana or any other pranayama, which is so far away from the real yoga. Still, you might try your luck, but I have been searching for 22 years, and I haven't found anything good. Did I answer your question? One more question. What should I do when I start acting foolishly? Let's say I'm acting unwisely, but I cannot fix it. Scriptures say that you should find the one who is free from that exact oddity and serve him. Such a service causes an energy exchange, and you would feel better. That's a bhakti yoga. Modern society encourages a development of ego. That's why a modern man cannot serve anyone. So when it's a time for your oddity to show up, ego will be the first to reveal itself. So be patient and make some efforts to overcome it. A question: do you mean yoga practice? Hatha yoga hardly can help you with it. The more you practice, the more foolishness comes up. That's how it is. Why do people lock themselves up in caves? Being obsessed, any person is out of control. Are you fine with the word obsession? It's like being obsessed with an idea. For example, one can be obsessed with food, and he can do nothing but eat for 24 hours. He eats up and fattens up and cries, as he cannot change it. How can you control him? So a teacher locks his disciple to restrain him from gluttony. And the disciple is given just a small portion of food, enough just for living. That's the way to save the disciple from his foolish head. Is that clear? Could you give a practical advice? No one can lock me up now. Then opt a way of serving those who can be awakened. That's a way to earn a good karma. When you help others awake, on accumulating some potential you get a payback. Still the beginning is tough. In Chimpu, I told you that just a small % of practitioners break through, which is at least 20 years of moving in the same direction. What happens more often is direction change every 2-3 years. In 20 years, these kind of practitioners find out that they are at the same point they pushed off 20 years back. They just made a circle. Different schools promote different directions of movement. If you want to eat, just visit an ISKCON temple, and you'll be offered prasad to eat. Chant mantra and eat as much prasad as you want, right? To put it short, any passion can be legalized. If you like opposite sex and can do nothing about it, even if you have a good husband, then visit a Tantra society. It facilitates hugging. Please, don't take this serious. I'm just pulling your leg. A question, should a wife be faithful to her husband and vice versa? It goes without saying, that's a norm for our society. We are talking about revealing obsessions. So let me answer your question. There is one solution, which is difficult. You may get gray, but I know those who managed it. The friend of mine that changes teachers got gray at the age of 45. Her delight every time gives way to disappointment. It's a bad influence on health. A woman has to serve a man who leads her. If she's married, she has to follow her husband. Husband has to be her teacher. A question, so he has to be a teacher himself. Exactly. A man who simply satisfies his woman's desires and earns money cannot be her teacher. He has to be a spiritual teacher. How can he become one? He has to have a teacher himself? No. A woman has to see that her man teaches others. Then she takes him as her teacher. Unless he has disciples, she doesn't see a teacher in him. As he's side by side to her, throws around his dirty socks, she finds him boring and cannot recognize a teacher. You see? A question, where can so many teachers be found? Not an issue, you can become a teacher for your husband. Some women lead their husbands. Why not? Women are wiser at some points, so go for it. A question, can a woman follow her own way? Yes, she can, as long as she has a teacher or a god as her strong core. A woman is in need of a core. She can choose a god or Guruji to play such a role for her. Otherwise, energies might disbalance her, but it's possible. Friends, I want to express gratitude to this place. I hope the lecture was effective and you have heard out what you had to according to your karma. Hail Tsonkapha! Thanks to his efforts, this lecture took place and this monastery was founded.